Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers have more information about the sellers and the business to help them make a buying decision. Now, before we dive in, let's go over a brief summary of this business. It's an affiliate and display advertising business created in May of 2020 in the information and education niches. The average monthly revenue for the business is $10,071 and makes an average of $10,029 per month in net profit. The assets included in the sale are a domain including all site content and files, 301 redirects, and just as a disclaimer, we recommend interested buyers have an approved AdSense account to aid a successful migration of the business. So for everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 66180 to learn more about the business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So that's a brief overview of the business for sale. So let's hear from the sellers with me today. So welcome to the show, Kyle and Declan. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you for having us. I'm Kyle, and I'll let Declan answer that question too.
I am doing well, and like Kyle said, I am Declan.
Nice to meet you both. Well, I'm looking forward to learning more about the both of you and, of course, your business. So to start us off, can you tell me a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, I'm going to take the lead on some of these questions we've just decided just because there's two of us. And so I'll jump in first. When it comes to my background specifically, I am a digital marketing consultant. I run a small consulting firm. And so I work with clients in a variety of different niches. And as a result of that, I'm often able to kind of get a little bit of a sense of where some of the opportunities are as it relates to niche sites. And so I own a small portfolio of niche sites. And I was interested in starting one in the e-learning space, specifically with different platforms that give regular individuals the opportunity to take classes from various instructors. I knew there was an opportunity in that space, and Declan, as somebody I've been in a mastermind with for years, he was running a consulting firm that was building websites with a lot of content for different people, and he was really invested in taking some online classes. And so I called him after one of our mastermind meetings and just said, I'm interested in starting this niche site. I bring a lot of SEO experience. I was hosting a 2-hour SEO training for a research client yesterday. He brought a lot of writing experience and also a lot of passion for the niche. And I just asked if he wanted to team up on this. And we ultimately decided to do that. So that's worked out well. He's focused a lot of our on-site content and has done a lot of the tech setup. I, at least at one time, was kind of the strategist. I think Declan's gotten to the point where a lot of the times I'm asking him for advice. I actually called him for advice on something yesterday related to niche websites. So that's been kind of cool that we've been able to, I guess, kind of help each other grow in this area through this project. I'm also a writer for the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, CNBC, Psychology Today, Forbes, Business Insider. So again, we both come with a significant amount of writing experience and a significant amount of consulting experience. We know how to build and grow websites. We do it for our clients all the time. And we decided to team up on building this one for our own portfolios.
Wow. Yeah, that's very cool. I don't think I've ever heard of a partnership that came from two individual consultancy owners. And it seems like your skill sets really work well for this. So it sounds like both of you were very much specifically in the content site business model. Is that right?
Not necessarily affiliate marketing. Some of them were, a lot of my clients are actually, so I'll just say this, like I have a client who's a columnist at one of the largest newspapers in the world. Not hard to guess what that is on a specific topic. So I work with people like that a lot who have a lot of content, which results in a lot of web traffic, and then they want to monetize that traffic. A lot of times they're doing that through information products, so e-courses. That's one of the reasons that e-learning platforms that have classes has always been intriguing to me, is I'm helping my clients a lot of times launch and sell online courses. And seeing some people do that at kind of an enterprise level was interesting to me. But yes, also a lot of SEO with client work and some display advertising, and all of it driven by content, because that's, where it catalyzes the traffic. Declan, jump in on this, man. What do you think?
Yeah, and I did a lot of content on my own from college and upward, just always having a blog, always writing online, just kind of understanding the space, and then got into web development just to build my own websites, and then eventually was able to turn those skills into a little agency where I was building course sites for clients. So people who wanted to create their own course and host it on their website, I was able to do that for them. So I kind of had a mix of skills that we kind of merged together and came up with this little business that has worked out pretty nicely.
Yeah, and for it being an affiliate and display advertising business, I will say this has grown pretty quickly. I mean, it's not unheard of to say that a website or content-based site would grow, maybe take even twice as long to grow as quickly.
In some ways, we're at kind of an advantage, as you've heard our backgrounds. And so that's been kind of a nice thing.
Absolutely.
We came in with a lot of experience, and had we not seen this opportunity for such rapid growth, I don't know if we would have done it. I want to just make a point of clarification, just full transparency for potential buyers. While it is true that there is both affiliate and display advertising, our revenue is significantly more invested in affiliate revenue currently. I actually think display advertising is a big opportunity for growth for this business, because I think there's a lot of content that's adjacent to some of the core content we've already created that would allow for growth in display advertising revenue. It's not something we've chosen to invest in as heavily. We do have some display advertising revenue, but we've certainly been more intentional about growing our affiliate revenue. And I think that the buyer is going to have one of the many big opportunities they're going to have with this business is to invest in the display advertising, which is really only something that we added into our revenue streams in just the last few months.
I'm going to remember to ask that specific question when we discuss more growth opportunities. I think that's a great point that you bring up. You've grown this business very quickly. So why would you say you're trying to sell the business now instead of keeping it and growing it further?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. In my case, my commitment when it comes to businesses as a consultant is it's all about growth. And I own a consulting agency. I won't say the full name of it, but growth is in the name of that business. And so there's so many people who are excited about the idea of passive income. I want to have this stream of income that I don't ever have to think about or work on. That's cool. But for me, if I'm not actively growing something, I kind of lose some of my excitement for it. I'm a little bit more devoted to like the business is kind of like this own entity that I want to see have its own success versus just, the passive income that it creates. So in my case, I mentioned some of my writing experience. I work with a lot of the biggest content creators in the world as my clients. So I actually went out recently and got a 6-figure book deal in the business space. And, one of the comps that was mentioned in the book proposal was the 4-hour work week. And so unofficially, my job is to write a book, in exchange for quite a bit of money that could hopefully be something that could sit on a shelf and be comparable to that in terms of the impact that it has. That's a big ask. That's a tall order. I have to have that manuscript in this year. After that, there's an editing process. After that, you launch the book. And I do a lot of book launches as a consultant. And so I intend to do that at a really high level. Declan, I'll let him talk more about this in a minute, but is also working on some exciting side projects. I'll let him give more examples of that. But basically, we reached a point where we've grown this business. We think that it's in a place where it can be handed off and somebody can take it even further. And we kind of have to choose between, it takes very little time to maintain this business. And so it could just be a passive income stream. That's fine. But I've never really been big on the idea of like maintaining things. I kind of believe if you aren't growing, then over time you're actually sort of declining. And so we could continue to maintain this while I write what is hopefully the next best-selling business book, while Declan works on his stuff. But we saw an opportunity to instead put this in the hands of somebody who has more capacity at this time to grow this business. And I think in some ways also just to complement some of the areas where Declan and I are less leveraged. We're not doing this at an enterprise level. Certainly a buyer that is coming in with a bigger team could do a lot of things that we haven't done. Not to say that the buyer has to have that. I think it's entirely possible that, a similar team of 2 or 1 could do some cool things also. But there are specifically some opportunities that we haven't chased just because of some of the limitations of the way we're structured. And we saw this as just the right time to hand that off, let somebody take this business to the next level, while I go hopefully finish this manuscript. Like I said, a tall order keeps me up at night. And while Declan works on some of his stuff, and I'll kind of pass the mic to him and let him talk about that to whatever extent he wants to.
Yeah, no, for me, it's a little bit different. It's not really much on the business side. This business was formed in kind of the peak COVID time. So there was a lot of available time where I could devote to it. Now gotten to the point where, we're past the pandemic and busy with other things. My family has grown. I'm up to 3 kids now. I'm working on my own book and novel and dabbling in some other things. And I think I know what's made this site so successful is that we were committed to making sure the content was authentic. So when I was writing these reviews, I was taking courses that I wanted to take and learn from. And I know that there are other courses in other subject areas that I'm not interested in, I don't have any knowledge going into it, which is difficult for me to write a good, authentic review. And we've kind of gotten to this point, 2.5 years later, where, so far it's just been me and Kyle. I've written 98% of the content I've edited all the content. I know that someone coming in with maybe a team of writers with different backgrounds and different interests could add a lot more to the business and grow it to much bigger extent. And just knowing, I know Kyle's, got his book coming up, and it's gotten to a point where it's okay, I think we've taken it as far as we could take it in 2.5 years with just the two of us.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I remember when you took one of the classes that was on music production, by the time that was over, it was time to write the review. And, the question was the class good? And your answer was essentially, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it was good, but I'm not entirely sure. It was an area that you've never really invested in. And so
that was a good learning experience. Yeah.
There's an opportunity. Anybody can write, a fake review and say, yeah, this was great. That's never been what we were about. And we're committed to finding a buyer who's looking for, ways to go above and beyond that also. And I agree with Declan that there's a lot of opportunity for a buyer who is willing to do the work to either maybe they just have their own additional interests personally, and that would create opportunity, or to bring in the people who have some of those and could then speak authentically about a lot of areas of content that we haven't touched just because it wasn't our thing.
Yeah. Well, I have heard a lot of different reasons when I ask this question of business owners, whether it's I've had my first or second or third child, or I have an exciting project coming up, or I've realized that this is now in the maintenance phase and I'm more interested in the building and growth phase. And I feel like all of those apply to you. So I definitely understand then why you are deciding to sell now. And I hope you reach out when both of your books do go live, as I'd be interested in checking those out. And congratulations.
Thank you.
On the deal.
Thank you.
Cool. So obviously both bring a lot of experience into this business from work, other projects. Maybe you can either answer for specifically on this project or something that you pulled from your experience going into this project. What did you learn from building this that worked that you think contributed to the success of this business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that historically, in a lot of my SEO work and in a lot of my niche site work, I think I've actually been more invested in link building than I was with this project. And I sensed a little bit of a shift as Google gets more sophisticated. I saw an opportunity to focus more on page and maybe a little bit less off page than I have in the past. I'm still really proud of our backlink profile. I think that we have, a great domain rating given, just the age of the site and how targeted we are in terms of our topic. But I think that this was an opportunity that we took to really grow when it came to those on-page indicators and to invest in creating content that spoke for itself to some extent. It was also an experiment for me in topical authority. And this may be more technical than you're looking for, but in the area of topical authority, these were areas where I'd seen a lot of sites that had success at one time and were losing a lot of that traction. And my theory was just that they lacked topical authority. These e-learning platforms, they have classes on so many different topics. And so I would see people in a lot of different areas trying to talk about some of these platforms, but their websites were about their discipline. And as a result of that, these articles were kind of orphaned on their site, for lack of a better word. They were not aligned with the focus of the website. And as I saw some of the shifts in the way Google was treating those articles, I thought that there was an opportunity to create a site that had just massive topical authority in the e-learning space.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And again, I think that's another thing that allowed us to focus more on page, more topical authority, a little bit less off page than I have at times. I think that's another opportunity for the buyer is to invest a little bit more in off page. I think there's growth that could come from that. But that was an experiment for me, was what if I built a niche site where the goal is, let's just own this topic, stay in our lane. And it's been funny. We can talk about this later with the opportunities, but every time we have branched out, or many of the times, it's actually worked really well. So I think there is a lot of opportunities to do some adjacent things. I think that was where the experiment kind of started for me, and it's worked really well.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Declan, was there anything that you brought from your experience or any experiments that you tried out with this business that you were curious about?
For me, it was just more like kind of really trusting my gut instinct and what are people looking for in a review. When people are trying to buy, $100, $200 product, they're going to Google right away whether it's worth it or not. And I wanted to make sure that I covered that question from the point of someone who gone through this experience and just giving an authentic, thorough review of this product or service. And that's where I thought I added value, where I was just writing a review that I thought someone would want to read versus writing a review that I thought Google wanted to read. And turns out it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
I think two of the areas where Declan really went above and beyond, I just want to piggyback on what he said. One is some of the classes that he took had multiple lessons, and he actually on some of the reviews would create like a custom lesson plan where he'd say, if you want kind of an accelerated program, here's the ones I think you really need to take that maybe cut out some of the fluff, and it would be an opportunity for you to get the best of what this course had to offer, but in less time. I thought that was really cool. A second thing that he did is on the occasion when we took a class that we weren't thrilled with, he would a lot of times go out and find a comparable class that he did like and say, we didn't love this one, but here's an alternative that we think is really good. And so I think those are a couple examples of what he's talking about.
Nice. My takeaway from both of your answers is that you both focused on on-page SEO, whereas maybe previously or for other projects, you would have focused more on link building or off-page. So it seems like your strategy at the time very much aligned with each other going into this.
Yeah, it did. I gave a 2-hour training for a client yesterday on SEO, and I don't know if I've ever said this out loud, but one of the things I said to them in that training, and it was kind of a moment of realization for me that I think came from this site, is that I have started to prioritize on-page more than I had before, and I think this site is where that started.
Nice. That's awesome to hear that the business taught you about, I guess, ways of running sites for your clients or your future projects moving forward.
Yeah, SEO's great for that. I mean, there's just so much feedback. There's so much data. If you're doing a bad job, Google's going to tell you.
Right. Now, was there anything you tried with this business that didn't work out as well? Any marketing experiments or courses or topics and anything that didn't gain as much traction?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have honestly been very successful in most of the things we've tried. One of the big reasons for that is we've been very focused. Like we knew where the opportunities were. Both marketing consultants. We're both experienced in the space. So I think that kind of helped our batting average, so to speak. The closest thing I could say to something that maybe didn't work as well is we did try to, at one point, chase certain keywords that were a little bit more vague, that were just kind of about, here are some great online classes for this type of person or that type of person. And in doing so, I think we kind of found ourselves competing with maybe some of the gifting sites and some of just the mega review sites that haven't had success in our exact topic, or not the success that I think we've had. But as you branch a little bit further out, you kind of get more into their domain. So we didn't really put a lot of investment into that. Very little link building, just wrote a handful of articles. But that was one opportunity that, at least at the level in which we did invest, it wasn't like a home run. Outside of that, I don't think we've tried much that didn't work per se. But again, we've just been very, very focused. That's not to say that if we had tried 100 different things, they would have all worked. But we've been very focused in this. And I think that's one of the cool things for the person who ultimately buys the site, is you're getting something with a really strong foundation, but so many of the opportunities that are going to be immediately obvious to a buyer haven't been touched. And we know those opportunities are there. But again, after I signed that big book deal, after Declan had his third child, we just had a conversation and said, we want to chase these opportunities, in some cases with, our spare time as we focus on some of the other things that have come up, or do we want to give it to somebody who can do that more wholeheartedly? And we decided to give somebody a shot at it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, talking about kind of the work involved or what could be involved as well with a new buyer taking this on, can you describe currently the amount and the type of work that you do on this business to maintain it?
To maintain it, well, relatively little. Declan, I'll definitely want you to jump in here in a minute. To grow it, I mean, there's some keyword research that needs to be done. There's some content that needs to be created. There's potentially some new affiliate partnerships that need to be formed. And I'm looking for a buyer who wants to grow this. I'm really not looking for a buyer who wants to maintain it. That's not to say I wouldn't consider it, but that's, kind of where my heart's at. So to grow it, yeah, there's work that needs to be done. That's growth. I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. I think there's an opportunity to create a lot of content in some new spaces, or not drastically new spaces, but to kind of round out what we've already done, form some new affiliate partnerships. I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. In terms of just maintaining it, there's really very little work that goes into it. I will say one of our affiliate partners, I want to be 100% transparent about this. We have one affiliate partner, their API is down currently. And so they're paying us through one monthly payment. And so there's a little bit of back and forth on that. We've been told that API is going to be back up and running very soon. It's run through one of the major, I don't even know what the terms would be for this, but let's just, whatever you want to call, like a Share a Sale, an Impact, a CJ, an AWIN, these affiliate networks, it's run through one of those. And so I'm confident they're going to have it back up and running. There's a little bit of email back and forth that's gone on with that. I think we're actually a little bit more proactive in communicating with some of our affiliate partners than most people are. You could let it run on autopilot if you wanted to. It's just, again, we have found that the stronger our relationships are with those partners, the better. And that's actually been, for people who want to grow, another opportunity is we've had multiple partners offer us more, in some cases, more information about what's coming, or even more revenue opportunities with that partner if we wanted to agree to do certain things. And we've decided to wait on that so as not to tie the hands of a potential buyer and rather to let them make that decision for themselves. But when it comes to the time invested for growth, I think one of the first opportunities would be to meet these affiliate partners and decide for yourself, do you want to, maybe sign an NDA with one partner in exchange for access to information that would give you, I think, a pretty significant advantage over other affiliates in that program, because you would know things that other people wouldn't know. You could be more prepared when these opportunities come up. Or do you want to, sign deals that, in some cases, paying for different amounts of content related to that program? That could also be an opportunity. And those are handoffs we're happy to make. That's not something that we would want to do over email. We'd be really happy to hop on a video call with some of our top affiliate partners. In some cases, we're some of the biggest affiliates in their programs, so they know us by name, and would be happy to make that introduction, kind of give a little bit of a history lesson on where some of those opportunities are. Because again, I really want to see this business grow, even if I'm not the one growing it.
Yeah.
Declan, what about you, man? You do a lot of our tech stuff. I know you just recently fixed a couple site health things when there was one day where a couple links broke and you went in and fixed some stuff.
Yeah, that was big. In terms of maintenance, not a whole bunch of work. It's just kind of monitoring Ahrefs and looking at keywords and seeing if anything's dropping, and if so, going back and refreshing some old content. That what Kyle just mentioned, I had put a link, I think, in the banner, but I forgot a dash. So the crawlers were returning these error pages, and I just went back and fixed it. But no,
that's
for the most part,
such a ridiculous answer, but that really is how little maintenance we have. You were like, let me tell the story of the time I forgot a dash. That's just honestly how little work goes into maintaining it.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for that week was, oh man, I gotta fix this thing. And then I reran the crawlers and it was fine. But just, refreshing some old content.
Yeah, that's fair. We do update content. That's a good point.
Yeah, update content. We have a good cache that helps speed up the site. I have make sure that there's no attacks on the login or whatnot. There's really nothing, just poking around, making sure it's up and running, and occasionally just
on the updating
Googling.
thing, Declan, what you just said. I think updating content, something that does happen a fair amount is our different affiliate partners will run promotions, and we always try to lean really heavily into those on our site. So when we get an announcement that one of our partners is offering a discount or some kind of limited time offer, we go in and update relevant content. We have a site-wide banner where we can give some real estate. We'll look in the bodies of actual articles for opportunities to mention special offers that are going on. And then obviously when those offers are over, we remove it. So even in a maintenance mode, that is something that I would strongly recommend. And then there's a little bit of back and forth with our affiliate partners when they're announcing, different incentives. Hit this milestone by the end of the month, we'll give you this thing. We definitely pay close attention to those emails so that we can opt into the incentives packages, and then also so that we can be aware of when any special promotions are going on so that we can talk about it to our customers. So Declan said that, but I just want to be a little more specific because I think that's a strong point that he made.
Got it. I guess whether I'm asking about maintenance or growth, I think the biggest insight that I'm trying to get from this is what kind of skill sets a new business owner would need coming into this. And I think that is clear that there are going to be ongoing maintenance tasks with updating content, which is just good practice for any content site. But then it sounds like you have unusually strong relationships with your affiliate partners. So I guess I don't know how unusual that is, but it sounds like you have very strong relationships with your affiliate partners where somebody coming into this who wants to grow the site would be able to really work closely with the affiliate partners to create some really unique content compared to the competitors.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. We have a separate question just about opportunities for growth, right? I just want to make sure. Okay, good.
Yep. And actually, that's the next question I was going to ask.
Building on what Declan said, though, we only sell to people who use Ahrefs. If you're on SEMrush or Moz, just don't even bother. I'm kidding.
And don't email you guys with a Yahoo email, just at gmail.com.
Yeah, if any buyer who comes in with @juno.com, you are not qualified to run this business.
Well, I know we've talked about opportunities maybe 2 or 3 times throughout this interview, so let's get to the actual question. So if you were to keep the business, what are some ways you would try to grow it?
Yeah, absolutely. Low-hanging fruit, especially for people who are doing this maybe a more enterprise level than Declan and I are. I would definitely invest in a little bit of link building. I think that there's a lot of content that, is in that 2, 3, 4 spot that could be in a number 1 spot, which is a little bit more link love. I've focused a lot of my link building efforts on a few core articles, and that's been really successful for us. But I think that building it out to some of the additional articles would be great. So low-hanging fruit to pretty easily, I think, improve rankings on some of those other posts and see a bump in revenue potentially as a result of that. Lots of opportunities for other affiliate partnerships. We are actually members of at least 2 affiliate programs that we aren't doing anything with that are big players in the space. One of them actually gets more search traffic than I think either of the partners that we are currently really invested with. We just haven't done it yet. So we're in those programs. At least I could think immediately of at least 3 major players in the space that we aren't really doing anything with. And I believe all 3, at least 2, have affiliate programs because I know we're in 2. I think the third one does. So lots of opportunity there. On the display advertising side, I think that there is tremendous opportunity to just go after keywords that are relevant, but maybe aren't as targeted around specific affiliate programs. But we have, a site that has demonstrated a lot of topical authority. So I think you could have a lot of success doing that and then grow display advertising revenue as a result of it. I think there's a great opportunity there. I mentioned that, we've tried some things that have worked really well where we just kind of branched out a little bit. One of them is an article that we wrote actually reviewing a course creation platform. So most of our articles are reviewing platforms where you take a course. We had one article I wrote, I think the only article on the site that I wrote was reviewing a platform that helps you make a course. And to our surprise, at least the last time I looked a couple days ago, I haven't looked literally in the last 5 minutes, it's number 1 in Google. And so I think there's an opportunity to move into that adjacent space. If you look at course creation platforms, that's a lot of different affiliate opportunities. And there's a host of affiliate sites that are dedicated specifically to that space. And yet when we moved into it, wrote one article, we were number 1, at least for the specific tool that we reviewed. So I think that's a big one. So I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, honestly. I think there's a lot of display advertising opportunity, more affiliate programs in the exact space we're in. There's some adjacent spaces where we've demonstrated that we can be successful. I think there's even the potential for a little bit of kind of an agency model. I have tons of clients who are interested in getting reviews of their online courses on Google because people are going to search for that review, and a lot of times it's not clear what they're going to find. And so I think you could probably start a great agency model working with some of the bigger course creators and, in exchange for a fee, offering to write an unbiased review of that material. And I think you could find a lot of people who'd be more than happy to pay for that service. Obviously, add in all the disclaimers and things that you need to add into that, do it with integrity. But I think there's a model there too, that something I've considered doing, even just with my own clients, but chose not to do after I got that book deal.
Yeah. Well, that was certainly a lot of opportunities. I think I listed 5 or 6 right there alone.
Declan, you want to add anything onto that, man?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to add in, we do on the sidebar and at the footer, we do have like email opt-in box that I put that purely as a way to see let's see if people put in their emails, and people have. We don't have a huge list. It's like 40 something people, but I think there's an opportunity there to even grow an email list and start a newsletter about these promotions, whatnot. I think being able to go to some of these partners saying like, oh, hey, we have a list of 5,000 people. We want to promote your X, Y, and Z. I think could help with future opportunities. I know other competitors in this space have done video reviews. So,
Yeah, with the
putting up
no video.
reviews. Yeah, I've done video editing in the past, and that's why I did not do it for this, because I know how much work that goes into that. But if a potential buyer has someone on their team or themselves who can do video content, I think that would be a huge opportunity to get into YouTube search engine or searches, or even just putting up content on social media or something like that. It was all written content for our site. But I think there's different forms of content that a potential buyer could branch out into.
Yeah, you just sparked three things for me. That was excellent. I hadn't even thought a lot of those things. But one, I do want to make a quick caveat, which is saying I totally agree there's a huge opportunity to grow an email list and then use that to be able to kind of pull levers when you want to more heavily promote one of these programs. Totally agree with that. We've made almost no effort at that. Like we have a place somewhere where you can opt in, but like we don't have any kind of an incentive, any kind of lead magnet. We barely even make that something people can find. So like Declan said, there's like 40 people on an email list somewhere. That's not something that we're planning to transfer. We've never sent them an email before. We think that's an awkward handoff, that the first email they ever get from this website be, under new management. There's hardly anybody on there. So I want to specify that because that would potentially be a question that would come up if you were to look at the listing. That's not something that is a real asset because we haven't ever invested in it. It's not something we're transferring. We're just going to shut that list down after we sell the site. We've never sent them an email before. But I think for the person who chooses to invest and build that email list, especially as they're growing traffic with some of these other articles in the space, we're always having to choose between, do we want to push for the affiliate sale or push for the email capture? With a lot of keywords that are still very relevant to the topic, but maybe aren't as relevant to the affiliate offer, you don't have that conflict as much. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity to grow an email list. I totally agree with Declan on that. What he said about video editing, absolutely true. Opportunity to create video reviews that could be featured in the article, which might help their discoverability on video sites. We don't even have social media platforms for this site. And I know that a lot of niche sites don't have any social media accounts, but I think there's an opportunity for the right buyer to really try to turn this into an authority site. And I guess that's kind of what I've hinted at without saying explicitly. While we've operated it somewhat as a niche site, I think this is a site that could become an authority site and could have a social media presence. We've never spent money on advertising, never spent, to my knowledge, a single penny on that. So there's certainly opportunities to potentially use advertising to get more people on the site because our conversion rates I've always been pleased with. And so that might be another quick opportunity to go after traffic. So a lot of different potential revenue generation opportunities, a lot of different traffic opportunities. And the last one I wanted to say is plenty of opportunities for growth with the partners we already have. I don't want to imply that, unless you form new partnerships, your growth is going to be stunted. In some of these cases, there are a lot of juicy keywords about individual courses on some of these e-learning platforms that we've still never written about for the reason that Declan said earlier. It's just, if it's something that we know too much about, it's kind of hard to write a review for the average person. If it's something we don't know anything about, it's kind of hard to write a review for the average person. And so lots of opportunity for growth just within the platforms that we've already been focused on. In that case, it's just creating the content.
Yeah. Well, a whole host of opportunities here. And of course, there's always risk with any business model. So what would you say are the biggest risks with either this business specifically or this business model that you think a buyer should be aware of?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the risks are more with the model than with the business. I can't really think of any very specific to the business. Google routinely changes their algorithm. Sometimes a site owner gets burned by that. I've experienced that before with websites I've owned. I've experienced it certainly with some of my clients. I think that anybody who's had experience in this space has dealt with that. That's a risk. It's always a risk. I think there's an opportunity to maybe diversify the traffic sources a little bit. That said, we have so much topical authority in this space that I don't think we've ever had a dip in response to an algorithm change. Declan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never perceived that to be the case. The buyers, I would certainly encourage them to verify that on their own, but I can't think of a time where the site was ever negatively impacted by an algorithm update. I think we've kind of done it the right way, and I think that's been reflected in some of the numbers that we've had. Affiliate programs can close. These are just general model risks. I've had affiliate programs close before on niche sites that I've owned. In our case, I feel really confident in the relationships we have with our partners, but it's something that can happen. If you want to just talk really big picture, we could talk about like what Chat GPT is going to do to the future of it, the future of search engines. But again, like you can see, I'm reaching. Like this is kind of like Declan's answer of like maintenance. Well, one time I put a dash in a link that I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Specific to this business, I want to give an answer because I know that if I don't, it almost sounds weird that I don't have one, but I think that we've built this the right way. I guess there's always the threat of new entrants in the space, but I really can't think of many specific to this website.
You mentioned the chat, which you're talking about the AI generated content, which is kind of a newer thing that's emerged in the past year or so. Yeah, that is a risk, but it's also one of those things that's like, it's a negative, but it could be a huge opportunity because as far as I can tell, like I know some people are saying like AI generated content is difficult to distinguish, but still not perfect. And I would hope that a new buyer would come in and still use real humans to write these reviews and that human touch to kind of pass that Turing test. And when people are visiting these sites, they know that a real human has gone on these e-learning platforms, taken courses, learned from it, and are sharing their experience versus just reading something that was generated from AI. I still think that's a huge opportunity because I think, I mean, not just in our niche, but in web content in general, we're going to see a huge influx of content written by AI. And I think when it comes to making a purchase and then wanting to read a review, people are still going to want to find something that they can trust. And I would hope that a new buyer would keep that trust that we've built, I believe, with our readers, that our content is written by humans and who have experienced these things and can actually deliver, trustworthy and helpful content.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with a lack of traffic diversification. I want to give a real answer. I don't want to kick around the answer. So I'm just going to say a lack of traffic source diversification. All of our traffic's organic. For most niche sites, that's the case. So again, I think that's more of a model thing than a business thing, but let's go with that. There's an opportunity to diversify the traffic source.
Sure.
And to add more affiliate programs. There already are multiple, but diversify the affiliate partnership. So I think I'd probably say that if I'm looking at this from a buyer perspective, one of the things I see as an opportunity for growth is I'm going to come in and try to diversify the traffic sources. I'm going to try to diversify the revenue sources further. And I think that's an opportunity.
Yeah. I think the opportunities for growth that you listed also speak to those risks directly. The email list, working with more affiliate partners. Opening display advertising as another revenue model. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to give a specific answer. I'm not trying to avoid the question. I really can't think of
not at
one
all.
specific to this business.
Yeah, and I'm even speaking to ChatGPT. That's a risk that no content site is protected from if you want to see that as a risk. And it's also a tool, as you mentioned, that content sites across the board can benefit from. So, and I think anybody with experience coming into this, which it sounds like you're looking for somebody with some experience in content sites, that they would be familiar with all of the risks listed here. So
yeah, I think so. Clear. We've never used, what I would classify as a PBN. So there's not like really a risk that I can perceive of a manual penalty. I think it's outside of just the risks inherent to the model. I think this is a pretty smart opportunity.
Yep. Okay. Well, a few housekeeping questions to wrap this up. How much support are you willing to offer a new buyer?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll tell you the same thing that we've told Empire Flippers just in some of the listing questions. I think there's like a standard 30-day email and phone support. They said, would you be willing to go above and beyond that? And my answer then is, the same as it is now, which is very possibly. I would just need to know what that means. It's hard for me to kind of visualize what above and beyond answering questions via email and phone for 30 days is. If it's just answering questions via email and phone for 40 days or something, then, I think there's a very good chance we would do that. We're very open to hearing questions or, proposals on ways that we want to be supportive. Again, I'm very invested in the long-term success of this business. I want to see this grow. I want to be able to feel the pride of looking at something that's even bigger than it was when I last worked on it and think, I started that, that there's a little bit of a legacy element in here. So we're happy to be supportive. It's hard without like a straw man to react to, but we're certainly open to hearing what people have in mind.
Got it. And just confirming that you commit to a non-compete on this business specifically?
Yeah, we do. There's a couple caveats that I've explained to Empire Flippers. One is as a consultant, and a lot of this applies to Declan too, I have clients in a huge number of different topics. And so some of these e-learning platforms have classes about like everything. So let's say hypothetically Kyle has a photography client and that photography client wants to put an affiliate link to a photography class on one of these e-learning platforms. I'm not going to go fire my photography client over that. So in that sense, where these e-learning platforms touch everything, that would be, I guess, a limitation of the non-compete. But I'm certainly not going to go start a competing website to review e-learning platforms. So, I have to go write a book. So I hope that makes sense. To the extent that there's overlap in the topics my clients cover And, if one of them decides to, in the very specific area that they talk about, link to an e-learning site as a source of continuing education, I'm not going to go fire all my clients. But I have no intention of consulting with a company whose specific focus is reviewing e-learning sites as a distinct industry. And a second thing, Declan, you might want to talk about this. Declan has in the past we talked about how we think there was an opportunity for the owner of this site to move into the course creation platform space for more potential affiliate partnerships. Declan has at one time had a site that did some of that, a little bit of, because again, he owns a consulting agency that builds like membership platforms and things like that. So he's done a little bit of that. I'll let you speak to it, Declan, but it's not currently the focus of the site we're selling. And Declan has put very little effort in the last few years into that site because he focused to this one. If it's an issue, then I think you've said you'd maybe be open to shutting that down, but I don't want to put any words in your mouth, Declan.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. For full disclosure, I do have a site which would review like building tools. So like I said, from some of my clients, I would build websites where they can host their courses. And then through that, I was like, oh, maybe I'll make my own website where I review these course tools. That was way before this current project, and I have not touched it since, and it has not made me any money since. But if a new buyer comes in and wants me to shut that down, I'm happy to delete it. It's just taking up hosting space currently. Yeah, and I agreed to the non-compete. I'm not going to go set up another one of these review sites.
Okay. And for anybody listening to this, if a buyer has any questions pertaining to the specifics of that, then it sounds like that would be best to just address with you specifically and see if it's actually an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think we're going above and beyond in answering a lot of these questions. And so, I think that in a lot of cases, we're telling you things that the average seller would just say, yeah, we're good. But I do my best to really make sure that there's full transparency. So these are some things that maybe a potential buyer could want to talk more about. And so now you have the opportunity if you want to.
When I say website, I mean, it's literally like 6 articles. It was something I started and I was like, I don't feel like doing this anymore.
And so, again, that's not the focus of the site we're selling.
Exactly.
I think it's an opportunity for growth for the site we're selling.
Correct.
Yep.
We couldn't think of anything when you said threats to the business, so we're trying to make up.
Well, I appreciate that. Sounds like this won't be an issue either, but I do appreciate you going above and beyond. Okay. Are you open to something like an earnout?
Open, maybe, but not something that we're expecting. We've been really flattered to see above average interest in this business compared to Empire Flipper's base rates. We're very confident, just given the relatively low price of it, that we're going to be able to get, I guess you could call, more attractive terms than that. So probably not. The exception would maybe be something that kind of appealed to us emotionally. If a team, 2 other guys out there named Kyle and Declan come along and, see this vision for growing the site and are able to, really put a lot of time into it. And that's the only way that they can potentially finance the purchase, then maybe. Sometimes people buy houses, they write a letter to the seller. We're not robots, so I'm not going to say there isn't anyone who could change our mind, but we expect to have options, and we would probably choose an option other than an earnout, barring something that we really don't expect.
Got it. So you're saying that they should write you a letter promising to name their newborn after you.
Yeah, write me a sob story, and nothing else. It'll be entertaining.
Got it.
But I really do mean this. I'm committed to growth for this business. So while I make a joke about that, at the same time, somebody who comes along and demonstrates that same passion, I would at least like to meet them.
Cool. I think that's fair. Well, last 2 questions here. Putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying? Even though we've gone over a ton of growth opportunities, I think it's very clear, but I'll let you come back to this question specifically.
Yeah, I hear what's implied there, which is, Kyle, for the love of gosh, please don't repeat everything you've already said. So I get that. So I'm going to add on something that I think is a little bit different. You've already heard me talk about the opportunities. I promise I won't do it again. What I will say is half of the reason this started was because Declan was having so much fun taking classes in this space. Some of the strangest retainers I still have as a consultant, some of the ones that don't necessarily make sense, are the ones where I'm just getting paid to do something that's either fun or advantageous for me. I'm getting paid to read articles that I would have read anyway, or maybe that I needed a little extra motivation to read. And so, yeah, sure, I'll keep tabs on this particular industry for a client because it's, something that I enjoy or something that I know I should be doing anyway. So I think one of the coolest things about this is it's just a fun area to invest in if you're somebody who's committed to personal growth. And so there's businesses where, maybe you're like selling cupcakes, and cupcakes are cool, but it's not necessarily something that's going to make you smarter. It's not necessarily something that's going to further your career in other areas outside of just the experience of owning the business and the learnings that come from that. But I think it's cool that the actual subject matter is something that can make you better. And so that's a reason that I think a buyer could want to invest in it if they have interest in that. If they don't, they might not want to invest in it. I also think it's just an opportunity to align yourself with, I don't have a crystal ball, but with an industry and a trend that I think we're going to see continue, which is just a growing number of people turning to the internet for online learning opportunities. I don't see that slowing down. I see that continuing. I mean, there may be a little bit of like compared to COVID, maybe there's a little bit of a dip, but overall, I see that being something that is going to continue well into the future. Those are the kinds of industries that I want to be operating in, are the ones where if I do my job, just the rising tide of the industry is going to be one of the things that's potentially propelling me to success. What about you, Declan?
Yeah, I'd say for me, like I mentioned, I've started and stopped so many past projects because I lost interest in the subject matter. And this was one of the first ones where I was excited to write, excited to learn, never felt like work. You think of like the proverbial niche sites of like reviewing, I don't know, garden sheds. Like I could never imagine working on a niche site like that. Whereas this one, it was fun. I actually learned things. I mentioned that I'm working on a novel. I took a lot of writing courses and would write reviews of those courses because I wanted to learn those things and gain those skill sets, and they were actually helpful. So
I remember you and I found ourselves in a meeting negotiation with somebody kind of adjacent to this project, and you were telling me, well, the class I took on negotiation as a part of the content I was developing said to do this. And so we just took it into that meeting with us, and it was good stuff.
When we got a puppy, I took a dog training course on one of these platforms and then wrote a review about it from my perspective as a new dog owner, and was like, this is what I learned and what actually worked. So it's one of those things where it's fun to do. It's a niche that is fun, and there's so many more opportunities that a buyer could explore who has different interests. And like I mentioned before, who has people eager to learn and explore these platforms. And yeah, it's been a fun 2.5 years.
It's a specific industry that encapsulates a broad range of topics.
Yes.
I think that's really rare.
Yeah. And I do like how you've just very adequately described this, just that it does, like you said, cupcakes are cool, but this is both personally enriching as well as financially rewarding. It makes sense as a business now and potentially in the future, given all the growth opportunities. So it is this really nice combination of hitting a lot of different things that one would want from a business, both for personal gain as well as for financial gain.
I love it. You can answer the last question for us, Nick. Just take it.
Nice. Well, it sounds like an awesome business. So I think we've gone over a lot, but as the final question, is there anything you'd like to add that you think I might have missed during the interview?
Declan, as we kind of agreed going in, I've done most of the talking, but why don't you take the lead on this one? Certainly, if there's anything that pops into your head.
I think we covered a lot of.
Putting him on the spot.
To be honest, I didn't know what this call was going to be like going in, but this has actually been really fun to talk and reflect about the past 2.5 years, because I remember the call that Kyle made to me with this idea when he was asked if I wanted to be his 50-50 partner and see what happens. And I remember how optimistic he was. And I was like, because I had worked on so many projects in the past, not with Kyle. And I was like, oh, okay. I was a little less optimistic. And he nailed it in terms of what he thought the potential in this space was. And we executed very well. And it has been a joy working with Kyle. And I think any new buyer coming in will have fun taking what we've built and hopefully growing it much, much more.
Yeah, I love that. I'll just use that as an opportunity to give a quick shout out to Declan, which is not the purpose of this podcast, but you just get to sit there and listen to it. No, I remember where I was standing when I called Declan, and this was an opportunity that I'd wanted to chase for a while. I just didn't have the bandwidth even before I had a book deal. And Declan, I think one of the things that he did that was just so great was he took so much ownership over the quality of the content. And I remember like at the very beginning years ago, I was like, send me the articles and I'll just kind of see if this aligns with like, kind of the standards I normally hold myself to for niche sites. And it was like 2 articles in when I was like, he's got it. Like he's creating custom lesson plans for some of these courses. He's giving people alternatives to things he doesn't like. So Declan really did a tremendous amount of work on the content. I think that's something that a buyer is going to benefit from for a long time, both in terms of the content that's already there and just some of the templates he's given people to reverse engineer as they continue to create content. So huge shout out to him. It was funny. I was on a call with a lawyer the other day, just asking some questions about some general business stuff. And I was talking about, I used my relationship with Declan as an analogy and just talked about how we did something. And I've got this lawyer just like terrified. He's like, no, you can't trust someone as much as you trust this person. Like, this is a disaster. This is all going to blow up. And I'm like, no, like we've been working together in different capacities for 6 years. My birthday this last year, actually had an opportunity to take my wife and daughter to a park, met Declan, his wife, their kids. We all hung out. To whatever extent this is an opportunity to reminisce, very thankful for the chance to do this with a friend and thankful for the chance to do this with somebody who I trust and someone who cared every bit as much as I did and brought kind of the same standards for excellence that had I been doing it alone.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Nick, we like you. Declan, you have anything nice to say about Nick?
Nick, wow, it has been a pleasure.
What can I say about
Guys,
Nick?
I mean, there are so many things that I was just going to jump in and say, man, any business owner, or I would say more specifically business partners, would be envious to have this as one of the closing chapters of one part of their business journey. So I think you described a unique business, but also I think a partnership done well with coming into this with certain skill sets, but also just hearing both of you answer questions, compliment each other in skill sets and complimenting each other. It seemed to work really well. So congratulations on getting to this point and doing it in such an enjoyable way, if that's the right way to describe that.
Thank you, man. It's been a privilege.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Kyle, Declan, thank you so much for sharing your story and joining us on today's episode. And
I think this is understood. We're happy to hop on calls with potential buyers. Clearly, we like to talk. And if you have questions, let us know. We're more than happy to hop on a call.
yes, for anybody listening, definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to chat with Kyle and Declan about the specifics of the business and definitely encourage you to unlock it. So on that note, I think this is the perfect place to wrap up. So I hope your business is purchased in the near future and by the perfect buyer, guys.
I appreciate that, man. We expect good things.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 66180. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.